I don't know how that would have happened, but a lot of people constantly say that they're these big feet dudes, capable of destroying trees and even lifting them.
Oh, dude, what? Did you hear that? Dude, that was something moving. Dude, that was something moving
I
through
definitely
there.
heard that.
That was something moving through those trees.
Something big.
Yeah.
The wilderness is often seen as a refuge, vast, silent, and untouched. But beyond the tree line, that stillness can shift without warning. In this video, we explore 7 chilling encounters drawn from remote forests across North America, where seasoned investigators, hunters, and explorers face towering figures, impossible transformations, and unseen forces moving through the dark, proving that some mysteries don't fade with daylight and some presences never truly leave.
Out of the way, we are back here. We are back, well, I am back. It's Seth's first time at the Bigfoot Forest. As if you guys have seen the last video, we had some very interesting encounters here at the Bigfoot Forest when I went back and found one of its structures and left a shiny silver part for it. And when I came back, it was gone. So we're going to try and replicate and see if we can't get the same results tonight. I don't have a shiny metal part, but I did find a few pieces of scrap tinfoil. So we're going to crumple up some tinfoil, see if Bigfoot enjoys that or whatever is out there. So yeah, are you ready to do this?
Yeah, I'm ready.
The cursed urban crew steps back into the Bigfoot forest, where the night holds more questions than answers. Seth, Dan the creator's friend, new to these shadow trails, feels the weight of the unknown pressing in. Last time, something vanished mysteriously, leaving only a hint of its presence. Tonight, armed with nothing but makeshift foil offerings, they move cautiously, drawn by curiosity and a sense that the forest is watching. And waiting. Every rustle, every shimmer in the dark could be the start of another encounter they won't soon forget.
Guys, we are headed in. If you guys remember, this is the path that takes us out to that Bigfoot structure. So we're gonna head there first so I can show Seth. Now, a lot of people were saying, well, not a lot, but one person or two people said they don't think that is an actual structure that's made from any type of creature. They think it could just be, you know, people putting together random objects in the woods, because I guess the structures that Bigfoot supposedly makes are a lot bigger.
In the darkness of the forest, a fleeting red glow caught their attention. A single, small dot hovered in the shadows, unnervingly distinct. It wasn't a pair of eyes, just a singular, unexplainable point of light. One moment it appeared, the next, it vanished, swallowed by the night. The forest held its silence, but the feeling of being watched lingered, heavy and unsettling, as if the shadows themselves were alive.
Something red.
Red?
Yeah.
What do you mean? Like what?
It's just like a little red dot or something. I don't know. Maybe I'm just tripping.
Like, do you think it could, like, your flashlight could have shown over like something's eyes, maybe?
No, it looked like one singular, like, red dot. It didn't look like eyes or anything. It was pretty creepy.
Huh.
But it just disappeared all of a sudden.
A sudden rustle cut through the silence of the forest, leaves trembling under some unseen weight. Twigs snapped as if something, or someone, moved just beyond the glow of their flashlights. Shadows shifted unnaturally, and a cold tension gripped them. What was out there, watching them, waiting in the darkness? And would it let them leave unscathed?
Oh, there's something. You hear that? It's not
Yeah,
but I just heard something move in the forest.
Yeah, it sounded like brushing.
Yeah.
They experimented with a thinner, higher-pitched object, tossing it carefully into the forest. At first, it seemed harmless, just another strange sound in the night. Then, a sudden movement snapped through the underbrush, Leaves rustled, branches cracked, and something massive shifted just beyond their sight. The noise came from the exact spot they had disturbed, as if whatever lurked there had been awakened. Cameras captured every moment of the eerie encounter. Had they provoked a creature, or was the forest itself watching, waiting, and coming alive around them?
All right, if you want to throw it back in the bag. Thank you. Oh, dude. What? Did you hear that? Dude, that was something moving. Dude, that was something moving
I
through
definitely
there.
heard that.
That was something moving through those trees.
Something big.
Yeah.
Brushing and crunching. Like you could hear like sticks breaking. and
Yeah.
stuff.
Yeah.
That scared me.
No, that was right up there. That's like right where we came from.
Yeah. You got that on camera, right?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. We both did, I'm sure. We're both rolling.
Whatever that was big.
Yeah, tell me that's a coincidence right after you hit the thing. Hit the tree with that.
Yeah.
Either we scared something or... let's head back up there.
All right.
In the deep hush of the forest, they paused, unease prickling at the edges of their thoughts. Something they had left behind before might have been discovered, but by what? The notion of a towering creature seemed absurd, yet the darkness felt alive, almost deliberate. Who or what could be moving silently through the trees at this hour? Every rustle and shadow pressed in, turning the forest into a place where the line between curiosity and danger blurred.
Like, somebody found that thing that I put out here last time. It's not some 9-foot tall creature roaming the woods, you know?
Yeah, but who would be here at this time of night, you know?
People like us.
Yeah. But they're not going to be, I don't know. Picking up.
A foul odor seeped into the air without warning, dense, sour, and disturbingly organic, like damp carpet left to rot in darkness mixed with freshly turned earth and decay. It didn't simply linger. It pressed in from all sides, thick enough to taste, coating the throat and clinging to every breath. Moments earlier, the night had been crisp and clean, but now that freshness was gone, replaced by something heavy and intrusive that hadn't been there before and wasn't fading.
A smell right now. Like a very, very heavy, like, smell. Like rotting, like think moldy carpet.
Yeah.
It's like so thick though you can almost taste it.
Moldy carpet mixed with earth.
Yeah, it's perfect. Perfect way to describe it. It was not here before. Yeah. No, it's still strong.
He abruptly halted, his light locking onto something in the brush. An apple, half eaten, its exposed flesh still pale and moist, as if the bite had been taken moments ago. It hadn't browned or dried. It looked fresh, recent. Only a few pieces lay there, undisturbed, with no clear sign of what had consumed them. The forest seemed to draw in around them as a chilling thought surfaced. Who or what had left this behind? And was it still close enough to be watching?
This is... You see what this is, Seth?
What?
You see that?
Yeah.
In here? What do you think that is? What's that look like to you?
He's eating something.
It's an apple.
Yeah. And it's like fresh. That doesn't...
Yeah.
That looks pretty fresh.
Dude, that's an apple.
Oh, something was recently here.
Yeah. That's the only two pieces I see. Oh, man. Okay. That's cool. See, oh man, I'm glad I kept the camera on. Let's see if we see anything else.
As night falls and the forest reclaims its shadows, the questions linger. What walked unseen among the trees? What shapes shifted just beyond sight? Meet Angelo, the explorer behind the YouTube channel. Exploring with Angelo, who guides viewers into the depths of remote forests, capturing the quiet mysteries and subtle signs that hint at something more. As he paused in a small clearing, senses alert, the air carried a strange, unsettling scent. Musty, yet sharp, almost sulfuric, lingering as if the forest itself was trying to warn him. And in that heavy, tense quiet, he realized the woods were far from empty.
Alright guys, so I'm gonna wait around for a little bit, see if we hear or see anything. It smells. It's really strange because a few people have been telling me that the odor is like musty. There's a musty odor when there's a Bigfoot around. That's kind of what I'm smelling. It smells like that, but also kind of like sulfuric at the same time.
He crouched at the edge, every sense straining as the forest whispered around him. From somewhere below, there was movement. Subtle, deliberate, impossible to place. A splash echoed, sudden and heavy, followed by a low, thudding sound that shook the ground beneath him.
Let's see. Let's see if we get a response. Mr. Bigfoot? I keep hearing something. It almost sounds like there's something down there moving. At one point, it almost sounded like something was like pushed into the water or thrown or something. I don't even know. This is apparently another Bigfoot thing.
Eyes scanning the shadows, realizing with a cold certainty that whatever was down there wasn't just part of the woods. It was aware of him, watching, waiting, and impossibly close.
I keep hearing something. It almost sounds like there's something down there moving. At one point, it almost sounded like something was like pushed into the water or thrown or something. I don't even know. This is apparently another Bigfoot thing. There it is again. I just heard it. What is that?
A strange, unsettling noise cut through the stillness of the forest, making Angelo tense, every muscle alert. One massive tree seemed to shudder, almost as if something enormous had brushed against it, yet the air was perfectly still. Then came the heavy pounds again, deep and deliberate, echoing from the direction of the waterfall, each one carrying the unnerving weight of something unseen, moving just beyond sight, patient and impossibly close.
Looked like it was almost moving. There's a big tree. There's no way. It's not even that windy. Oh. Now I'm hearing thumps over there. Again, it sounds like something in the waterfall.
A shadow flickered at the edge of vision, something shifting silently among the trees. A sudden crash from above made him jump. Had something fallen, or was it merely a trick of the light? Every sound seemed amplified in the stillness, and the forest felt alive, holding its secrets close. Was he truly alone, or was something watching, waiting just out of sight?
It was weird. I thought I saw something move out there for a second. Oh, something just fell off the tree. I don't know, it could have just been a shadow.
Something shifted in the distance, followed by the heavy crash of fallen trees echoing through the still forest. There was no wind, no obvious cause, yet the sound felt deliberate, as if something enormous had moved with intent. Could anything living really wield such power, moving through the woods unseen, strong enough to bend or topple massive trees? And the answer seemed just out of reach, lurking in the shadows.
Trees. That's definitely something. I don't know how that would have happened, but I mean, you never really know. but a lot of people constantly say that these big feet dudes are, capable of destroying trees and even lifting them.
On the ground lay strange impressions and scattered debris, patterns too deliberate to be random. Could something massive and unseen really be moving here, leaving its mark and watching from the shadows? The evidence seemed to hum with a quiet warning, suggesting a presence that had been moving just out of sight, watching and leaving its mark behind.
Somebody make these? Or did something else do it? Also, little froggy.
If all the sounds, the sudden crashes, the shifting shadows, and the strange marks on the ground are real, then what exactly is moving just beyond sight? And how long before this unseen presence, powerful and deliberate, decides he is no longer merely an observer, but part of whatever is watching? On this episode of Flash of Beauty, Bigfoot Revealed, the story moves to the remote interior of Alaska near North Pole, just outside Fairbanks, where longtime resident Mark Franks shares encounters that challenge logic itself. After more than 3 decades in Alaska and a career spanning law enforcement and emergency response, he built a long career in public safety and emergency services, advancing through multiple roles that demanded discipline, composure under pressure, and unwavering attention to detail. Despite a career shaped by structure, he recounts multiple direct experiences with what many call Sasquatch, events that unfolded deep in the vast wilderness he knows intimately, leaving a seasoned public servant grappling with something that resists explanation.
My name is Mark Franks, and I'm an Alaska resident for almost 31 years. And I've lived in this particular region here since 2022. I lived in Fairbanks for a couple of years as well. I was a cop when I was young. I worked in the public service sector. After I was a police officer, I was actually a sheriff's deputy. Then I was also a firefighter paramedic, and I was a fire marshal as well with my department. And I've had numerous encounters with Sasquatch in Alaska. So I lived in a county that was very high populous of deer and bear concentrations. I was baiting for bear when I was probably about 18 years old, even though I'd been hunting black bears for probably since I was 14. And this one particular day, the wind was blowing wrong at my blind, so I went to a different area to sit down, and I was sleepy because I worked a combination of security and I worked for the sheriff's department as well. So I took a nap, I woke up.
After resting, he awoke to the heavy, deliberate sound of something moving through the trees, low to the ground on hands and feet, pausing occasionally as though testing the air. Instinctively, he grabbed his weapon, and as the presence drew closer, the movement shifted, rising onto 2 legs, a stance he first assumed belonged to a bear. But when the figure finally entered view, its shape and posture defied every expectation, and in that suspended moment, he realized with stark certainty that this was something entirely unlike anything he had faced before.
Hearing something walking on all fours, and by the way that it was walking, I could tell it was maybe possibly sniffing the air, but I didn't know because I didn't have it in view. So I picked up my 30-06 and it got closer and closer. Then I heard it come off of all fours to stand up 2 legs, which I assumed it was a bear wanting to sniff the air. So I pushed my safety off, and when what I assumed to be a bear came into view, I scoped it, and I was like, that's not a bear.
Through the scope, he saw a face unmistakably human, massive shoulders towering beside a slender aspen. It moved with uncanny grace along an old trail, rose fully upright, then slipped behind the tree so seamlessly it seemed to vanish into the forest itself. Moments later, When he lowered the firearm, it was gone, leaving only the chilling sense that something impossible had just passed through the quiet wilderness.
Because it had a human face, 100%, and it was large. The shoulders were probably maybe 48 inches across. I was looking at the head, and it was standing right next to a poplar tree, which is an aspen. They're called aspen down the lower 48, or they call them Quakies. And there was an old skidder trail, where this trail was, and this creature literally stood up probably 18 inches to 2 feet, and it stood up, got behind that poplar tree, and I'd seen the whole width of it just seconds before through the scope, and then when I put the rifle down, and then I was still looking at it. It was probably at a distance of maybe 45 yards, and it just stood up by that tree, and then it got in line with that tree, but just vanished.
As the encounter unfolded, the being seemed to blur the line between reality and impossibility, morphing from a massive, broad-shouldered biped into the unmistakable form of a moose. Months later, Fred, a longtime tracker and field investigator with years of experience in the Alaskan wilderness, shared a chilling parallel. Another witness, almost in the same spot, saw the reverse, a moose shifting into a towering Sasquatch. The eerie symmetry of these events in the same remote forest only deepened the sense that something utterly beyond explanation was moving silently through the wilderness.
Lengthening in time, it started to shapeshift. And it shapeshifted from a bipedal creature that was wide on the shoulders to a moose. It transformed itself into a moose. And a couple months after that, Fred had called me and told me that another guy in almost the exact same area had the exact same experience, except it went from a moose to a squatch, almost in the exact same area. So that was pretty wild.
By the gate, he noticed a colossal mound, easily brushing the 10-foot mark and broad enough to command attention, its surface dotted with tufts of grass. A short distance away, another similar formation emerged, equally imposing. The sheer bulk and power suggested in its massive legs evoked the strength of elite athletes, leaving him both stunned and unsettled by the extraordinary scale of whatever had left these marks deep in the wild.
That's closest to where the chain and cable gate is probably 8.5 to 10 feet, 8 or 9 feet tall, and probably maybe 15 feet across. And it's got grass growing on it. So there's one there, then there's a separation about 40 or 50 yards, then there's another one of those. So that's where I determined it to be 10.5 feet tall. My legs, when I was fat, they were like massive. My thighs used to be massive. And this thing's thighs, he had 40-inch thighs because his muscles and his legs were so big.
Its body resembled a massive living trunk, covered in long, flowing hair that stretched nearly 2 feet in places, yet between the strands, glimpses of skin made it startlingly real. He could only stand and watch, struck by the sheer enormity and presence of the creature, so immense, so undeniably alive, that even with prior encounters, it left him in awe and completely wordless.
You can see the fur, the hair, it's like long. It's like, it's like anywhere from like where the buttocks were, to like 10 inches to like 18, 20-inch strands of hair. But you could see through the hair, you could see the flesh. And I just looked at it in awe. I never even thought to take a picture because I've seen him so many different times. But that guy was big.
From this spot, the tracks stretched out, heads visible but arms hidden, hinting at something unusual. A chill ran through him. He'd only shown this to a select handful, leaving the eerie sense that these steps were more than prints, perhaps the first sign of shapeshifting. On Animal Planet, the team returns to the spot where years ago a search became a face-to-face encounter that sparked the Bigfoot Field Researchers Organization. The forest feels denser, the trees taller, yet the old tank still stands.
I'm excited to take the team to the location where I had my first face-to-face encounter with a Sasquatch that led to the creation of the BFRO, and so much that's happened in Bigfoot research since then. Wow, the trees are so much bigger, but it's the same tank. That's the tank that was there.
And Matt remembers crouching behind a small ridge, expecting the creature to pass unseen. But it didn't. It emerged through the leaves, massive and unyielding, letting out a low, menacing rumble that erased all doubt. And now the team retraces those same steps, feeling the forest's weight and the presence that once stepped into the light.
And here I was, laying down, tried to hide behind the berm because I figured they'd walk out of there, come through there and walk past here. But it comes through the trees and it comes out right over here, and it just walks out through this curtain of leaves and just stands right there and starts growling.
Decades ago, he placed ads in tiny, forgotten newspapers, hoping to reach anyone who'd seen the unexplained. And that's how Brian Jones, a sharp-eyed local with a keen sense for the woods, answered.
I had put classified ads in all the little local rural newspapers around and got a bunch of calls from witnesses, and one of them was named Brian Jones.
After night fell, they slipped into the forest, Brian taking a separate vantage a short distance away, scanning the shadowed road with quiet intensity.
I and the local guy Brian had gotten out here just after dark. I sent Brian off to perch at a position about 100 feet away from me so he could have a different view down a different stretch of the road. We hunkered down there and waited for hours.
Hours passed in tense silence, broken only by the whisper of leaves and the forest's faint sighs. Then, just past midnight, Brian's whisper trembled in the night as distant voices and a slow, shifting presence stirred the forest floor.
Then at about 2:30 a.m., Brian says he's hearing voices and footsteps coming down the gravel path. And that's when I hear big footsteps coming just inside the tree line to my right.
Almost instantly, heavy, measured steps echoed through the trees at his side, deliberate and unyielding, announcing that something was watching, waiting, and very close. At last, something enormous stepped from the shadows, looming, shadowed, and covered in thick, matted hair, its presence impossible to ignore. A deep, guttural sound rolled through the trees, vibrating the ground beneath him. He murmured reassurance, trying to calm it, but inside, he was frozen in disbelief. Years of searching had led to this undeniable moment. Every skeptic, every doubt vanished. No one could ever understand what it felt like to stand there, staring into the eyes of the unknown.
Finally, this big, tall, dark, hairy thing steps out from the brush and starts growling. I start talking to the thing, like, it's okay, we're leaving. And I'm like, my God, because I had waited years to have that kind of an encounter, and I just had it.
Bobo moved through the shadowed forest like a living legend, and watching him brought it all back. The first time he had seen one, full on, unmistakable. A moment that had kept him awake for days, heart racing, mind buzzing. Returning to this place, retracing those same steps, the forest seemed charged with that same raw presence, alive and watching. From that instant forward, it didn't matter what anyone said or doubted. He knew the truth. That certainty consumed him, driving him to capture it, to prove it, to show the world that the unknown wasn't a story or a myth. It was real, undeniable, and staring back.
I remember when I had my sighting, I didn't sleep hardly for 3 days, just I was so jazzed. Being here with Matt just totally reminds me when I had my first, full-on visual encounter where you knew without a shadow of a doubt they were real, and it never mattered again the rest of your life what anyone thought of you, said, joked, whatever. You know they're real, you know you're right, and it just can obsess you, make you consume with filming them, proving they're real, showing the world.
Stepping back into the clearing where Matt had his sighting, the reaction was immediate and visceral. Wide eyes, hands trembling with the memory of something colossal. He pointed, estimating the figure's height, and it seemed impossible, far larger than any human, dominating the space with an almost tangible presence. Through the thick undergrowth, the creature had emerged just enough to reveal its full frame, towering and undeniable, every inch radiating power. In that instant, disbelief melted away. The forest itself seemed to hold its breath, and the encounter that had haunted his memory for years became shockingly, vividly real.
When we brought Matt back to the exact location, he, like other witnesses, showed visible emotion. I mean, look at him. His voice is elevating. He's extremely animating. He's sweating profusely. This guy is clearly showing us some raw emotion at this point.
So I'm in the right spot, Matt?
Wow. Put your hand up, man. It was higher than that, even higher than that, maybe another 6 inches up. That's about where it was, and it was just so much bigger than you.
So it was well over 8 foot, then 6 inches above my fingertips.
I thought it was closer because it was so big, but it was right there. That's where the edge was. But again, there was a curtain of growth right there, so it walked out just enough so that I could see its whole body. I thought it was maybe only about that tall, but it was much bigger than that.
It was 8.5+ feet, it looks like.
The creek had long whispered of unseen giants, and Berlin Lake held shadows no one dared follow. Now he returned, stepping quietly into the heart of the wilderness, where every rustle and shimmer hinted at something immense just beyond sight. This wasn't merely an investigation anymore, it was a confrontation with the unknown that had haunted these woods for decades.
There's so many sightings along that creek and then down at Berlin Lake. There's squatches all through this area. I'll say in the woods, I'm back!
And this time it's personal.
That's right.
So we're going to be interviewing Scott Taylor. He's a Bigfoot investigator, and he's taken by far more reports than anybody that I know of. And today he's going to be going over his personal experiences.
On Salish Sasquatch, Scott Taylor steps forward, not just as an investigator, but as someone who has faced the unknown firsthand. Known for gathering more Bigfoot reports than almost anyone else, Scott has shared others' stories before. Today, he turns the lens inward, revealing his own chilling encounters, moments that blur the line between legend and reality, and offer a rare glimpse into what truly moves through the forests. In 2020, Scott relocated to Mason County, drawn by the quiet and the memories of his first encounter, just about 10 miles west in the Wuchie Valley. That first sighting had come in October during a deer hunt. As the day faded and he made his way back to his truck, the woods grew strangely still, as if something unseen was watching him, setting the stage for an experience he would never forget.
Out here to the western part of Mason County in 2020 when the whole COVID thing hit, and I kind of wanted to get out this way because it's not too far from where I had my first encounter, which is just west of here, about 10 miles as a crow flies. It was up in the Wynoochee Valley. That was in October of 2005, and I was deer hunting and done for the day. It was still a little bit light and starting to make the trek back to the gate where the vehicle was parked.
He and his friend had only moved a short distance when the path curved out of sight. That's when something appeared on the road ahead, breaking the quiet with a deep, chilling cry that shook the air. Immediately hushed his friend, who had been speaking, as the sound echoed again and again. He ran through every animal he knew. Nothing could make a noise like that. The foul odor in the air combined with the otherworldly calls, and a sudden realization hit. This wasn't ordinary. Fear surged through both of them, and without hesitation, they turned and ran, desperate to put distance between themselves and the presence that had emerged from the shadows.
And we walked maybe another 200 yards, kind of went just around a bend a little bit out of sight of that location, and it had by then stepped up onto the road and it started to vocalize. And with the first vocalization, it was hugely loud, extremely loud. And I stopped and told her to shush because she was talking. And then it vocalized 3 more times. And in the time it was vocalizing, I was going through the list in my head of what animals make that kind of a sound, and there was none. So suddenly it hit me, that stink and that sound, it can only be a Sasquatch. And so I showed quite a bit of alarm at that time, and it kind of freaked her out then too. So we hot-footed it out of there as quick as we could.
In the days that followed, whispers began to surface from unexpected places, colleagues revealing fleeting glimpses and strange encounters they'd never shared before. That first brush with the unknown had opened a door he couldn't ignore. Compelled by curiosity and a growing obsession, he plunged into the world of Bigfoots, chasing every clue, every sighting, desperate to understand these elusive beings and the secrets they hid deep in the wilderness.
Days, a half a dozen coworkers came up privately and said, "Let me tell you about what happened to me." And they had all had encounters of one kind or another, including, just plain old eyeball sightings. So that was my first encounter, and that's what got me really interested in the subject. And so my way of coping was I had to find out everything I could about Bigfoots. I wanted to know what they were, who they were, everything I could know.
The following year, he brought his group to the far end of the road west of camp, settling quietly as night fell. Out of nowhere, a huge figure emerged, snapping branches as it moved boldly down the slope. It stopped mere yards away beneath a towering oak, eyes glowing in the gloom, staring at them with a chilling intensity, as if the darkness itself was watching.
We took a group out on a night walk and walked out to the end of a road west of the main base camp, and there's a turnaround at that road, at the end of that road, and we all just sat down in little groups. There was 11 of us plus me, and so we just sat there. We said, well, okay, let's just see what happens. And one just comes walking unconcerned right down the slope, sticks popping, making lots of noise. He wasn't trying to be stealthy. It was like in your face. And he came down to within about 30 feet of us and stopped where a big maple tree was. And he's standing there looking at us. And we could see his eye glow, because by then it was pretty near dark.
He glimpsed it for a heartbeat before it spun and disappeared into the darkness of the forest. Though its shadowy form blended with the night, the long, glossy hair shimmered as it moved, catching what little light there was and leaving an unsettling, almost otherworldly impression that lingered in his mind.
Step back into the woods. It was all black, but the interesting thing was the hair again was long, flowy, and shiny as it moved and turned. So.
A friend once glimpsed a Sasquatch across a distant draw. The creature seemed aware of him, but moved with deliberate calm, foraging and flipping rocks as if the forest itself belonged to it. When other hunters passed along a nearby trail only yards away, it seamlessly slipped into the shadows, completely unseen. In that moment, he realized just how extraordinary these creatures are: patient, silent, and capable of vanishing into the wilderness as though they were never there at all.
And he was watching a Sasquatch across a draw on the other side. Sasquatch didn't know he was there, but he was watching it through his rifle scope for about 45 minutes. And it was just foraging, looking under rocks, finding things to eat. And some hunters started coming from the left side, following a game trail, and all it did was just simply squat down and freeze. And they walked within 20 feet of that Sasquatch and never saw it. So yeah, that's one of the things they do, and it's easy to miss them. And they are so good at blending in. All they got to do is freeze. You just won't see them.
Robert is the creator behind the YouTube channel Cabin in the Woods, where he documents his pursuit of one of the forest's most enduring mysteries. Once living a predictable, ordinary life, everything shifted after a single encounter with something towering and unexplained in the wilderness. What followed was an obsession, months of research, eyewitness accounts, and remote expeditions that pushed him far beyond casual curiosity. After nearly a year and a half of relentless investigation, he reached a sobering truth. He had been wrong more often than right, and the deeper he searched, the stranger the mystery became.
My name's Robert, and I used to be a normal guy with a normal job. And then I saw Bigfoot, and basically my whole life became anything but normal. I researched every day as much as I could get my hands on, read every scrap of material I could find on the subject. I went on Sasquatch expeditions and even delved into things that most Sasquatch enthusiasts aren't willing to. And after all that time and effort thinking about this nearly nonstop for almost a year and a half, the main thing I learned is that I've been wrong a lot more than I've been right. And you'll see what I mean, because in this video, I'm going to share with you everything I've learned about Bigfoot. And I suggest you brace yourself, because the further down this rabbit hole you go with me, the weirder it gets.
That night, compelled by a restless curiosity that had always driven him toward the unknown, he slipped quietly into the shadowed forests of Vancouver Island, a wild place where predators roam unseen, and the air itself feels alive with mystery. What began as a solitary walk soon shifted into something far more unsettling. A deep, resonant sound echoed through the trees, unlike anything he had encountered. A voice, part human, part something else entirely, carrying a weight that pressed against his chest. In that instant, the forest transformed from familiar wilderness into a place of palpable danger, and he realized instinctively that he was not meant to confront whatever was out there.
Later that day, it was actually night by this point, I took a walk in the woods. I have always been a naturally curious person, always attracted to the unknown. That's probably what set me up to turn into a quote-unquote Bigfoot researcher. But anyway, I took this walk in the woods. The forest on Vancouver Island is full of black bears and mountain lions and who knows what else, and I did not have a weapon. I ended up hearing two sounds that quickly convinced me to leave the forest. The first one was a kind of grunt or growl sound, but deeper and more resonant than any grunt I'd ever heard from a person, although it was weirdly kind of person-like. But it also didn't sound like a bear or a mountain lion.
Just moments later, a new sound cut through the night. A tree groaning and twisting, wood fibers snapping as if under impossible pressure. There was no wind, no tremor, nothing that could account for it. The two noises, back to back, slammed into him with a raw, primal intensity, and fear surged like a living thing. Every instinct screamed to get out, and without thinking, he bolted, vanishing into the shadows, the forest behind him suddenly alive with a presence he couldn't see but would never forget.
30 seconds later, maybe less, I heard the sound of a tree twisting, like wood fibers creaking and breaking. There wasn't any wind, there wasn't a breeze that could have caused a branch to make that noise. So these two noises in quick succession scared the living daylights out of me, so I just hightailed it out of there.
As he approached, a massive black shape emerged about 70 yards ahead, shifting unnaturally in the underbrush. Its form was amorphous, a looming, shadowy mass that defied recognition. Yet he knew it had moved. Though the footage made it appear still, a deep instinctive dread told him it was alive, and that lingering any longer would be a grave mistake.
But before I could go up and examine the trees, I saw a huge black shape, 70 yards or so, into the bush ahead of me, and it had moved. I looked at it, and it didn't look like it was alive in that it didn't have any recognizable shape. It didn't look like a bear. It didn't have an obvious head, shoulders, arms, and legs the way a person, or a Bigfoot for that matter, would have, or at least I expected they would have. It was just big and hulking and black and formless, really. But the thing is, it had moved. I was certain I'd seen it move. Got the footage, but it seemed to be staying stock still while I filmed it. But I saw this thing, and I had this feeling of dread somehow. Like, I knew it was alive, it had moved, and somehow it didn't feel right.
Surprisingly, it matched many reported Sasquatch sightings, massive and hairy, yet uncannily human in its features. The face, eyes, even the expression. Witnesses often describe the unsettling sense of staring at a giant, distorted human rather than an animal, a detail that echoes the startling conclusions of recent Sasquatch DNA research.
But on other levels, it actually jived fairly well. For instance, a lot of purported Sasquatch encounters involve eyewitnesses saying that What they saw looked remarkably human. Big and wide and muscular and hairy, certainly, but in terms of its face, the facial details, the nose, the cheekbone structure, and the expression, the emotion in the eyes. A lot of times people said, I thought I was looking at a weird, big, hairy man. So that kind of fit with this whole human hybrid conclusion from the Sasquatch Genome Project study, as weird and unsettling as that seemed.
After nearly 18 months consumed by obsession, he's come to a stark realization. These creatures cannot be neatly defined or contained. Every attempt to categorize them is shattered by new evidence, revealing a mystery far more complex than expected. The only path is to stay completely open, examining, challenging, considering, occasionally discarding ideas, yet never shutting the door on any possibility. To do otherwise is to risk being proven wrong, for the reality of this phenomenon is far more mysterious, shadowed, and unfathomable than anything we could ever predict.
I try to put these beings in one specific, neatly defined box. The box is ripped apart a few months later as I continue delving into this research. They don't seem to be containable in just one box or category. So what do you do with that if your stated goal is to uncover and understand the full truth of this phenomenon? For me, the only thing I can do at this point is maintain a fully open mind. Test things, weigh things, even conclude against certain claims, but never ever fully dismiss any of it. Because if I do, chances are I'll be proven wrong soon after. Well, there you have it, guys. Everything I've learned, and many things I haven't, about Bigfoot over the last nearly 18 months of complete and utter obsession. If you have any thoughts or insights on what I've shared here, please share them in the comments below.
The true nature of the creature haunting these forests remains unknown, leaving Robert, and all of us, to question what silently watches from the shadows and what mysteries the wilderness still keeps from view. On Small Town Monster, Gail Beatty ventures deep into the Hudson Valley, a place famous for strange lights in the sky and even stranger footsteps on the ground. Between dense forests and hidden trails, signs of Bigfoot have been quietly accumulating for years. Massive footprints, fleeting glimpses, and eerie noises that seem to follow the explorers. With a mix of curiosity and careful investigation, Gail brings these hidden stories to light, revealing a side of the valley most people never see, and challenging what we thought we knew about the world around us.
Hudson Valley is notorious for UFO sightings, and definitely there's a lot of Bigfoot activity here. As you can see behind us and all around us, we've gotten so much evidence of Sasquatch in this area that it's time to get it out to the public, I guess you could say.
Steve Coles, an investigator and storyteller fascinated by the unexplained, shares the eerie legends of the Hudson Valley and surrounding regions, where history and myth often intertwine. He recounts how Samuel de Champlain, while traveling the St. Lawrence River, learned from the people about the massive, hairy man-beast said to roam the forests. Decades later, in the 17S, Robert's Rangers, the British troops whose tactics would inspire the US Army Rangers, reported a strange encounter, bears seemingly throwing rocks at them. While physically impossible, so if it wasn't bears, then what creature or force was daring enough to challenge men in the wilderness? These accounts reflect a land where the unexplained lingers, and the line between reality and legend grows thin.
When Samuel de Champlain was traveling up or down the St. Lawrence River, he had got in contact with the Micmac Indians, and they had talked about stories of the Gogu, which meant hairy man beast. So that was one story. There was another account of Robert's Rangers in the 1750s. Now, Robert's Rangers is the military, the revolutionary British contingent that the United States Army formed their Rangers on. And one of their reports in the 1750s spoke about a group of bears throwing rocks at them. And we all know bears can't throw rocks.
In the Hudson Valley, whispers of Bigfoot linger in the shadows, yet some indigenous elders tread carefully around the subject. They rarely share what they know, perhaps out of caution, tradition, or a belief that certain truths are not meant for outsiders. Their silence only deepens the valley's enigmatic reputation, hinting that the forest holds secrets far older and stranger than most are willing to speak aloud.
Some indigenous friends that when I bring up the subject of Bigfoot, they kind of shy away from talking about it, which, you know, that's fine. I mean, they don't have to tell me everything, but they don't really talk about it. I don't really understand why, but they just don't. They might not know very much about it, or they may not want to discuss it with someone else, I guess.
In Lower Dutchess County, New York, near the winding paths of the Appalachian Trail, Brian's family experienced something they couldn't explain. A relative, normally quick to dismiss tales of Bigfoot or aliens, caught sight of a figure moving unnaturally through the forest one quiet June morning. The image was fleeting but unforgettable, a shadow that vanished into the trees almost too fast to believe. Driven by curiosity, Brian returned to the area the next day, retracing the winding roads and dense woods, searching for any trace of the mysterious presence that had silently watched from the shadows.
From Pauling, outside of Pauling, New York. It's about an hour south of here, but Lower Dutchess County. I have a close family member who doesn't believe in, they believe in ghosts, but talk about Bigfoot or aliens. No, come on, get out of here. You believe in that, right? So anyway, they're driving on a June morning, maybe 4 or 5 years ago, and a company car, and they look up and they see something walking off the road. And they texted me and said, I just saw something run in the woods. 10 minutes later, it was Bigfoot. I said, oh, I gotta hear this. The next day, we drove up and down that wooded road for miles.
During the 1980s, strange reports began surfacing across the Hudson Valley. Stories of a towering, shadowy creature moving silently through the forests. One of the most curious tales came from Bruce Hallenbeck, and his grandmother reported strange visitors slipping quietly through their backyard. Hoping to provoke a closer look, Bruce placed food atop a makeshift feeder, and what appeared next was both unsettling and extraordinary, suggesting an intelligence and awareness far beyond anything they had ever imagined.
It was so prevalent. Of course, there's the story with Bruce Hallenbeck and his grandmother and her sightings and some of his experiments he did.
I really think that it's Bigfoot. Oh, he was big, tall, and he was standing on his 2 feet just like a person, and covered with black hair. Oh my, terrible looking thing.
It's very elusive, whatever it is.
In fact, Hallenbeck says this thing is so elusive that he'll sometimes see tracks and then they suddenly stop, as if the creature had vanished into thin air.
The more you investigate, the weirder it gets, especially when you find those mysterious tracks, some of which have 3 toes, some of which have 5. It seems as though the creature is almost paranormal, that maybe it's something that's not quite of our reality, like a ghost. Maybe it can appear and disappear at will. I realize that sounds pretty wild, but I know there's something out there, and what it is, I have no idea.
Whispers of Bigfoot appears across almost every corner of the state, but Kinderhook and Whitehall seem to hold a deeper, darker focus. What once seemed like a handful of sightings now stretches into the hundreds, each encounter more mysterious than the last. These forests aren't just local legends. They're part of a puzzle that spans the globe, hinting at a presence that watches from the shadows, always just beyond reach.
State, you would come up with a history of Bigfoot reports. And so I don't know if Kinderhook and Whitehall are any different from other communities, but they just happen to be areas that have been sort of put under a magnifying glass, and you can see how many sightings. For instance, when John Green wrote his book, The Apes Among Us, I think he had 11 sightings in New York and a few in Vermont. And then when we looked at that region, there's actually hundreds. So these are hot areas, but it's an all-encompassing global enigma.
On the latest adventure from Sozo Bear Films, the team set out to uncover something real in the heart of Appalachia. Northeast Georgia, a region steeped in Bigfoot lore, would be their testing ground. As dawn broke on a crisp October morning, the crew prepared to visit Expedition Bigfoot, the site with perhaps the strongest evidence of these elusive creatures, hoping the woods might finally reveal what has long remained hidden.
Northeast Georgia and that region of Appalachia is very tied to Bigfoot. Are there creatures out in the woods that we don't really fully understand? Maybe. We'll find out.
It's 5:30 in the morning. It's October. It's officially spooky season. We're heading to LJ, to the place that has probably the most actual evidence of Bigfoot's existence. It's called Expedition Bigfoot. We're getting ready to head out there now.
As soon as the idea for the investigation took shape, the team knew exactly who to call. Vic Navarro, a family friend who had long been their gateway into the paranormal. Tales of strange noises and unexplainable events had always been dismissed as pranks or imagination.
My instances, I've written about it and all this other stuff, but I've kept it to myself well until now.
So as soon as the idea for this project came up, I thought we should contact Vic Navarro. He's a friend of the family that I've known pretty much my whole life, and probably the first person to really introduce me to the world of the paranormal.
But now, standing on the edge of the unknown, they couldn't ignore the possibility any longer. Something was out there in the woods, and the question hung heavy in the air.
Sooner or later, everybody's going to have to face the facts that we're not alone. Bigfoot is real, so what do we do about it? Where are we?
If Bigfoot truly exists, where would they even begin to find it? Justin McCullough, a lifelong resident of Northeast Georgia and a well-known local Bigfoot witness.
I just felt like it was important for people to hear about it. And maybe that will get people to, tell their stories too. We just put the boys down for bed, and my dog usually goes outside with them before I, put them up for the night. So we went out there. He just stops.
Has spent years exploring the region's dense forests and collecting first-hand accounts of strange sightings.
And he immediately just starts visibly getting, shaking, and runs back inside and hides. He's never done that before. But I was listening, and I heard all these weird ape-like noises, and I could see, looks like something standing in the woods. That's when I knew something was actually close. And then all of a sudden, I started getting really scared, a really weird feeling, and it felt like something pressed into my thoughts.
He recalled one night that would forever change his perspective. Night had fallen, and the house lay quiet, save for the soft breathing of sleeping children. But the familiar routine of stepping outside with the dog turned instantly wrong. The animal froze, quivering, then bolted inside, terrified. From the edge of the darkened woods came low, guttural calls echoing like something not quite human. Shadows shifted, and a massive, indistinct shape loomed between the trees. In that instant, a bone-deep fear settled over him. Whatever was out there was real, and it was closer than anyone dared imagine.
And he's like, here, let me ask you some questions. And then when he asked me if I felt anything pressed into my mind.
The episode set out to uncover the secrets hidden within the old cemeteries of LJ, Blue Ridge, and Blairsville, places where history and legend collide. Moving carefully through the twilight, the team respected every resting place. But an eerie stillness always seemed to follow them. No rustle of leaves, no chirp of insects, just a heavy, unnatural quiet that made the hairs on their necks rise.
Area group out, we make our choice where we're going to go, and we always try to go to the most active area at the time. Learning all these different things about them. A lot of folks think, okay, we can all just go right here in the forest and go to beating on trees and everything. We'll get a response. That's true. You probably can't. You may not get the response you want. To start off with, we're going to ease up here in this little wood line right here, and with the hopes and chance to hear something or get a chance to get a glimpse of something.
Later, as they examined the photos, one frame stopped them cold. A towering, shadowy figure, eyes glowing like embers, hunched and alert, watching from the edge of the graveyard. The moment confirmed what they had long suspected. Some presences in these woods are far from ordinary. The encounter happened in the late summer of 2018, deep in the rugged mountains of North Georgia. While inspecting a property along the edge of vast stretches of untouched forest, the witness noticed movement in a clearing ahead. At first, it seemed like a person, or perhaps an animal, but then the figure halted, motionless and tense. A massive, shadowy shape stared directly, its elongated face, sharp ears, and enormous hand gripping a nearby tree unmistakable.
That to be said, we haven't found our own physical evidence of Bigfoot, but we met a ton of people who were willing to share their personal accounts, their encounters, people who are local here to LJ, Georgia, who have seen, they've heard, they've even felt something really unexplainable in the woods here.
But honestly, the experience of searching or just stepping out into the unknown with friends and listening to the sounds of the forest and wondering what might be out there, that's kind of what makes it worth it to me.
We're not giving up. I think there's still plenty to explore. And I think for a place with such rich history as LJ, Georgia, there's so much more to uncover.
The forest fell deathly silent, and in that heavy, unnatural quiet, it became terrifyingly clear that something otherworldly was watching. The forest hung in an eerie, heavy silence as night settled over the North Georgia mountains. Amid the shadows, a massive figure moved behind a low-hanging branch, revealing its towering size. Faint, deliberate noises stirred in the underbrush.
To start off with, we're going to ease up here in this little wood line right here, and with the hopes and chance to hear something or get a chance to get a glimpse of something. These critters are like excellent mimickers. They can mimic all kind of wildlife sounds. And up here, it just seems to be that one of the sounds they love to mimic is an owl. And when you're out there and you get to hear that, where one's trying to mimic an owl is not that loud. It's not that chesty, boisterous, loudness of a regular owl.
Urging a hasty retreat to the truck. Only once inside did the true weight of the encounter sink in. A chilling reminder that the woods conceal forces beyond imagination. These encounters remind us that the wilderness holds secrets far older and far stranger than we can imagine. Some mysteries remain unsolved, waiting silently for the next witness to step too close.